Welcome back to the OverChurched podcast for people who love Christ but are struggling with Christians. My name is Delicia.
Justin.
We are so glad that you're back listening.
I think this is like episode,
I don't even know.
I think it's number 10.
Okay.
And you should not need a teleprompter
I do need a teleprompter.
for the intro.
Yes, I do.
We've been doing this.
For everybody who understands as a woman brain fog and struggles with that. Wow, are you making fun of me?
Wow, did you just try to hit me against women? That's not fair. That is not fair. That was a low blow. I have nothing against women with brain fog. I'm all about equality. And if I can, it's 2 sentences.
No, get out of here.
Welcome to the OverChurched podcast for people who love Christ but are struggling with Christian.
Love it.
How do you know when it's time to leave a church? Because I think the problem is, here's the tension, here's the setup. Too many Christians are never satisfied at their church and they just church hop. Like no church is good enough. So they're out there church spotting. And then on the opposite end, you get people that they're miserable and everybody knows it. They won't leave.
Yeah.
So how do you know when it's time to leave?
They have a loyalty to that. Yeah.
Or a loyalty.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we'll talk about in a little.
So I think that for anybody listening overall, maybe you started listening to the OverChurched podcast because you're like, yeah, I'm over it. I'm so over it. And this is where probably for us, we started this and knew this topic was so big because of the fact that there is so many people that we have seen over our time in ministry that are staying somewhere that we all know that you're miserable at, or the ones now. I feel like now it's like almost like shopping around. Like
they got commitment issues.
Yeah, when they're talking about I'm shopping for a church.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, great. I get what you're saying.
At least you're going to church.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're going to church.
It's better than abandoning it, I guess.
But I don't know. That doesn't sit well with me all the time. Just hearing that.
It's like dating that many people.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, until you commit, never know.
Yeah.
And
because you need to commit because you can't find out the first time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if you do find out the first time, then hey, more power to you. That's great. Like, but most people, if you're that skeptical and you're really trying to find a place that to call home in that way, then it's gonna take.
I give it a few.
Yeah, I would honestly say we used to hear like you have to visit at least 3 times, right? But now I think that it's like maybe I would say 3 to 6 months.
What?
Yeah.
Especially
if you're talking about a whole family. I'm thinking in my mind.
You would try a church for 6 months, not knowing if you want to stay there.
Yeah, I would.
This is going to be interesting because I totally disagree.
Because you know what? Because when we had left our ministry job and then you wanted to go to a different church all the time. I found my one and then I was doing that by myself.
You went one time.
No, I didn't.
How many times did you go?
2 more times. and you were totally judging me because you remember I was just sitting on the couch.
At least I was going to churches. I at least I was trying to.
Like you were trying to go to all the churches in the valley, and I was like,
and you were just sitting on the couch. So I feel like I was
watching it online.
See, I feel like I
became the online person.
I was a way better church person than you were in that time.
You like go mingle with people.
I wasn't even. First of all, it wasn't a lot of mingling. Some churches are cold.
No,
like you go in there and they no one talks to you. Like it was like going to a new school.
The guy that stands around trying to talk to people. So I'm not that person.
Let's start off because we'll start over. I want to hear your perspective, and then I'll give you the right one.
So why I say that is because I think now as a lead pastor, I think of like how we plan things and events and stuff. I'm like, man, okay, we got baptisms this month, and then we got homecoming coming up, and then we got Christmas. Like, okay, and then there might be something new for the kids. Maybe not that whole month, maybe not even the second month, but then it's coming the holidays, and it's like, oh, they have now all this stuff for kids or whatever the case may be. I don't think you can catch that in 1 month, like visiting the church.
Okay, I see that point.
Like maybe more to the event side of things, or even women's ministry or a life group? Or how do you know you didn't miss out on your best friends in a life group if you never joined one and tried it out for a while?
That's fair.
Like, how are you supposed to do that within 3 visits?
That's fair.
No, like, but fair. What's your perspective?
3 to 6 months just feels so. That's like half a year of my life. Like, okay.
Tell the people right now who they're talking to, though. Because
I won't. I don't like committing to nothing. Like, yeah, but so
you like change. You do well.
I like change. Yeah, I was ready to sell our house last week.
Yeah.
Shout out our realtor. She talked me out of selling our house.
Yeah.
But okay, there's different groups of people, right? There's the person that's still trying to figure out a church. Then we'll talk about the person that's in a church, and then usually, okay, so just first on like, trying to find. So maybe I was really badly hurt somewhere. Like I've already left, and now I'm trying to figure out where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
I personally am the type of person where I'll give you 3 chances, and I'll feel like in those 3 chances, the 3 things I want to know are, what's the preaching like?
Yeah.
What's the worship like?
Yeah.
And as a parent, what's the kids like?
That's not every person.
Or if I didn't have kids, I would be like, are there other people like me that I can connect with, like community-wise?
Yeah.
All right. Now, I get your point. Like, it takes time to actually develop a relationship with someone. Yeah. I get that. I totally get that. But, bruh, I'm honestly, if I'm already
your personality, and I'm sure there's people listening that are just like that. Like they're like, no, that sounds way too long.
Yeah, 3. But to be fair, like what you're saying, I do think in terms of this is the other thing. You want like this. You want 3 to 6 months. You're gonna get deep with these people and really know. I'm not trying to get deep with her. I just need to know, hey, is there somebody I'm going to link? Is there somebody? Do I connect with the pastor? Do I connect with the worship? And is there people that I feel like I can relate to? Yeah. If I don't visibly see, if I don't see another athletic looking guy.
Well, what about if the pastor was on sabbatical that month?
I missed out. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I would go on YouTube.
Okay.
I would go on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, that's a point.
Like, I would know from YouTube. Like YouTube. So I would say minimum 3 chances.
And I disagree. I say minimum 3 months.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
Here.
Okay.
No.
Go ahead,
but this is why. Because you get the person who comes in super excited about the church, all about it, high on emotions, like wants to be plugged in, wants to like put me wherever. And then a month later, or almost 2 months later, you get plugged in, you get put in and like trying to get involved in everything. And then they start acting funny. They start acting real funny. Like they're not, first off, they're like, hold on. Oh, this is too much. This is too much. I didn't mean to commit this much to, and it's like, hold up, you came to me. I didn't look for you. Like you came to me, and me being the leader of the pastor of the church, like that's those types of people that come in and are like, we love this place. We want to be a part. We want to serve however we want to do whatever. And then 2-3 months later, they're like a whole new person. And you're just like, hold up. Sandy's weird.
Who?
Sandy.
Like, did you just name drop? Shout out Sandy. Sandy at our church is amazing.
Okay, there's not one Sandy at our church.
Hey, shout out Sandy. We love you.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is like, I think that there's too much of this impulse. And I think that the longevity for you to be somewhere, you really need to fill that out. Don't be so quick to be like, I want to jump all in. I want to do whatever it takes. And we just love it. It's like, you know us. You just saw me on stage.
Hold on. Okay, let me ask you this question then. Because everything you're saying is true and valid, and I agree with it. But if I go 3 times in a row and I'm like, okay, the first time I went, the kids' ministry was shot. I'm going to give them another chance.
Right.
Then I go again, and I'm like, this kids' ministry still is not, I don't feel good about it. And I go another time.
Yeah.
And then the third time I'm like, this kid's ministry, like my kid, and I'm not talking about like my kid is going and he's crying going there. Like our kids going to school, especially like as their babies, like it takes months for them to, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in terms of like, there is no, like just whatever the process is, you know,
you're upset
about everything. Like, you know what I mean? Would you say as a parent, you would give a church more than 3 times if every time with your kids, you didn't feel comfortable? Would you say 3 months at a place where you're like, hey, Jimmy?
Now, okay, as a parent, that's not fair.
Why?
Because when you're bringing up my kids, that's a different perspective.
That is literally what people go into churches.
No. Not people without kids.
Okay, we're not talking about people without. We're talking
about all people overall. The general person.
The majority of people that go to church majority of adults that end up at churches have kids.
Is that true?
Yeah. I'll Google it. Keep talking.
But I think that overall, like I hear you. Would I allow that? Like uncomfortable is a strong word. If I felt uncomfortable, I wouldn't. No. Okay. But if you're talking about, I see things that could improve, and they're like, I wouldn't really do it that way, or I think that this can get better somehow, then I really feel like maybe you really need to just question, God, do you have me here because you're showing me this need? Like, and I think that that's how I started off with being at church. It was just like, I just kept seeing needs and I would be a solution to those needs if that's what I felt like God was asking of me. I mean, I got to be able to be a part. I got to be a part of the kids ministry, youth ministry. I served being an usher. I served. What else? What else have I done? I've done parking lot for a little bit. Like, I would do anything if it like in the sense of if I felt like, okay, you know what, there's a need here. I'm going to help out. But that was always my mindset coming into church. And church never was this place for me of what can the church do for me? And I guess that is where I want to shift it to, of the fact of like the mindset that people come in so we can move on to the next person that we're talking about. But new person coming in, shopping for a church, you shop for a church. I think that overall, I think that you need to ask, where is God calling you to, and how has he called you to help serve that church? Not what you can get all
So we'll call them a consumer.
Yeah.
So there's the consumer, which is, what do I get out of this?
Yeah.
There's the contributor, which is, what can I bring to this?
Yes, Pastor. Right there.
Welcome to the OverChurched podcast. So
I'm over your sermon points.
Yeah. So I'm just giving a way to identify people.
I know how you work.
So you're saying you have a problem with consumer Christians?
I do have, but I need everybody to hear me on this. Is like, I've always been this way.
Yeah.
This has never been.
This isn't because you're a pastor.
No.
It's like, because even as a teenager, you're like,
yeah,
well, I'm here for a reason. My
leaders have always said that to me, of like, if I could have duplicated you or had 10 of you or whatever the case may be. And I didn't know what that meant at a younger age, but I now do, being older, of like, oh, that's what they meant. It was like, I'm not here expecting so much from like them as a pastor or my leaders, and then let alone the whole church. Like, I came here to serve. And that's what Christ was sent down on this earth to do, is to serve, not to be served. Yeah. So where do we get this whole like Americanized thought process of like, let me go shop around, like churches are a buffet and we just need everything we want. And as long as they got the buffet, like we're like, okay, I want a little bit of that and I want a little bit of this, and don't have that. Okay. This ain't the church for me. If they don't have that, then why aren't you the solution to that? So like, that's my whole point of like, why is it that I have such a problem with the fact of people thinking that this is the way to look for a church. Yeah. Instead of, why don't you pray about it first and then go, and wherever God calls you to, if you see an area that needs people or whatever, or there's a need. There is a need. Why do you think that you can see it? Like, it's not by chance, you know, and because our God is purposeful, like, and intentional in that way. So that's kind of just where I've been at when it comes to serving the local church, and why it's hard for me to hear. I think it's gotten worse, but I mean,
for sure.
So that's why I say this 3 to 6 months. I get with kids, that's hard. I totally get that as mom or whatever. But at the same time, you going to a church one week after another with kids too isn't really getting them established anywhere either.
Oh, you in a different church?
Yeah, like each weekend of going to a different church. Yeah. And then be real. How often do you even go to church? Like, if you only go once a month, then I for sure am saying 3 to 6 months with you. Because you're not talking about, we don't live in the South. We live on the West Coast. Sure. And it's like, West Coast Christians, I love y'all.
I'll live
like, I love y'all. But we got an issue with the whole being consistent going to church type deal.
It's
like,
not a priority.
It's not a priority. Yeah. It's an option.
Yeah.
Like, do I feel like it today?
Yeah.
You know? So, and we don't demand not even demand, we don't even raise up our kids to have that type of mindset either.
Like, this is a necessity, not an option.
Yeah. Like, when we go to the South, we feel that. We're like, dang, like, everybody and their mama goes. Like,
but they're saying they're feeling it too. It's starting to, I think it's a generational thing. I think it's still, they have better roots, but overall, I think it's, talk to pastors, they would say they're fresh. It's a decline too.
Right.
It's just, I remember we went to Elevation one time and I was like, and they're like, we'll come twice a month. Like, the verdict is right here. He was like, they don't care. They come twice a month.
Yeah. That is true.
Okay. All right. I agree more with you. I still I can't commit 6 months to nobody that I don't feel like this is going somewhere.
Other than your wife.
Other than my wife. And most of my kids. I'm just kidding. And my kids. But okay, let's say I'm already in a church.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not shopping anymore. Like, I've been at a church for 3 to 6 years. Okay. How do I know when it's time to leave?
You're the better one at this. You got to answer that question. Like, I feel like you knew from, even though I heard from God first, I think that I felt like God was just always like comforting me before I could ever make a transition like that. But we weren't in that place. I would say we weren't in that place our first time of transition to we weren't upset or like looking, or we weren't miserable.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Which is good.
Yeah.
So I think we should start off with reasons not to leave a church.
Yeah.
So if I've been going to a church, here's a reason not to leave.
Never leave offended.
Just because I offended. Yeah. Just because somebody offended me.
I had a friend just tell me recently in a conversation of, I want to come to church and have peace. I don't want to feel frustrated. I don't want to get into it with anybody or like feel like we're on eggshells with each other or anything like that. She was genuinely telling me this, right? But I had to like remind her, like, if we're a body of Christ and we're family, like if we're truly family, we're gonna get on each other's nerves.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna happen. It's inevitable of like it happening. And so I think that's not the right mindset to come into. Like, as soon as there's friction, oh, that's time to go. And there's people, I would say that there's more people now in this society, in this world, that as soon as there's a little bit of friction, because ever since COVID, it's like, if you disagree with me, that's not God.
Or cut you off.
Or we're cutting you off.
Yeah, I can't.
Like,
yeah.
But people call it not God. Like, and that's not even true with God. Yeah. God makes you upset at times. Yeah. Like, God does things in your life. You're like, God, why did you allow this to happen? Why is this happening? Like, if God is going to make us upset, like, do you think like you could ever just never have that with anybody else? But people really believe that. Like, they will go running or keep church hopping or leave all the time. And the best advice I ever got from my mom was like, when we were leaving through our transition, and I had mentioned, I believe in one of our previous podcasts, is like, that just stuck with me all these years, was that, Delicia, wouldn't you rather leave because God told you so instead of being offended?
Yeah.
She's like, I've seen nothing but people leave because they're offended.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen somebody leave because they felt like they're saying God told them. And I think that is way more, like, I'm just so thankful God showed us that early on. So I would say to a person who's in the church right now, if you left, or you've been leaving, or you've been hopping, or you've been running because you've been offended, then boo-boo, you got to check yourself and see, what is it? This isn't about anymore about where God's called you. It's about where you feel more comfortable to be at until the friction happens. And so I think that people just need to take a look at that when it comes to it. But then also there's people who are just sitting in it. They'll deal with the friction. Like, they'll deal with maybe respect too. Like, what would you say for somebody?
Well, my first thought before you even get to those people is, I think oftentimes Christians, unfortunately, are the worst at confrontation.
Yeah.
And our entire faith was built on confrontation, friction, like Jesus challenging Peter, like, get behind me, Satan.
Yeah.
What if Peter was like, oh, heck no, he just called me Satan, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for real.
We would have lost one of the greatest apostles ever.
And you think about like how he said, come follow me.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that was like
convenient?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I know that's your job. I want you to give up your job to follow me. But Jesus, oftentimes when he saw it, though, we see it in scripture, he would be like, if anyone wants to follow me, you got to eat my flesh and drink my blood. And people would be like, oh, and that was offensive. He said that intentionally.
Yeah.
Because that was the most offensive thing. You know, people, they didn't drink blood and they didn't eat. That would have been grotesque. And so he intentionally challenged people, and then he would look at his disciples and be like, are you going to leave me too?
Yeah.
And so I think that we live in such a, Kobe Bryant would say, softest Charmin type of culture where they can't handle hard conversations. Like, Christians would rather run away and stop going to the church instead of having the hard conversation of, hey, I really felt away when you said whatever to me, or I need to understand what you meant by that because this is how I took, you know what I mean? Like, instead of having hard conversations, they silently quit, stop serving, and disengage. Yeah. And it's like, bro, iron sharpens iron. Iron means friction. Like, the only way for us to get sharper is, it can't be, if I come to church, I don't want to lose my peace. Like, bro, the sermon might offend you. Yeah. Like, there's so many things that can happen in life and if you're actually being part of the body, part of the relationship, that should cause you. Truth is offensive. Yeah, it is. It is. And so I agree with you. I think that offense can't be the make or break thing of, I left that church because I didn't like how so-and-so said something to me or whatever. It's like, then grow a pair and talk to them. Yeah. Because now you're teaching your kids that's what we do. That's what we do. We don't, we don't agree, so we're just going to leave. Yeah. And it's like, no, so I agree with that. But, so can we add I think we got to add caption, pop-ups, ding dings, you know what I mean? Like, okay, reasons not to leave. Don't leave just because you're offended. Yeah. Number one. But don't be so naive. And I do think that some people suffer from spiritual abuse and they just take it. Yeah. Because the problem that I've seen with some churches is they idolize this whole honor concept. Yeah. That honor concept has gone. It gets dangerous. And they'll use books and you know what I mean? It's that one John Bevere book that pastors did to just Undercover. Undercover. I think Undercover in its essence is an amazing book. Yeah. Because it protects you from becoming that person who every time I'm offended, right, I run away. And I think he rewrote it. Yeah. I think he rewrote just to make sure the first time. Yeah. But then the problem with a book like isn't the problem with the book, but the problem with people who are manipulative is they'll use Undercover as a reason to keep people stuck and afraid to leave a place that is not healthy.
Yeah.
And that it's not that it's just offensive, it's detrimental. It's detrimental to your family. You're spending more time at church than you are with your own family. You're sacrificing all these sorts of things for the sake of the church. You know what I'm saying?
And that's good. I think that to piggyback on that is that I think what is something that you should be aware of if you're in a low-key spiritual abusive relationship, church that you're in, is that if you can never ask questions. If somebody, now it doesn't always have to be the lead pastor, because I don't know how big the church is or anything like that. But I would say if it is somebody that can't sit down with you ever, a leader, a pastor, director, whatever the case might be, to sit down with you and answer your questions, or that if you don't agree with something like that's open to that. I think that where the abuse comes in is where people will use a book like that to
don't question us.
Yeah, don't question us.
Question God's anointed.
Yeah, like read that and then just fall in line.
Yeah.
Instead of talking to them yourself. Like, especially pastors, if you're on staff with somebody, like that is your staff and you're a lead pastor, or maybe you got a pastor of operations or pastor of staff, whatever the role is, and however big the church is, I don't think anything's wrong with it. Whoever is that supposed to be needs to be able to have the conversation with people themselves. I think that had this honor code and allowing pastors to think that they're just so unapproachable in so many different ways,
or that they're never wrong.
Yeah, that you're never wrong. Like only my real friends can question me. Like only the people who really know me.
But nobody really knows you because
nobody really knows you because you don't let nobody really know you. The only person that might know you is your wife or your husband. Like that's it, right? Yeah. But at the same time, I think that that's a red flag for people of like, take a look at that. Can you ask questions? Whether that's through an email, maybe you're not even trying to meet with somebody in person. Yeah. Like you just want send clarity. An email. You just want clarity. Yeah. You should be okay and allowed to ask questions
and get clarity.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, how is that not honoring in any type of way?
I think it's the most honoring thing. If someone, I would say if someone were to leave, if someone was offended by something I said, or something I did, and they reached out and they tried to, either meet with me or you or someone, and no one ever got back to them or no one gave them, they kept brushing them off, I would say you have a right to leave. Yeah. Because you did your part in trying to, hey, I want to get clarity.
Matthew 18.
Yeah. You did your part in trying to, handle the offense and deal with it directly. But if you keep getting brushed off, what that's saying is you're not a priority. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be for me, but you know what I'm saying? Like if I can't, then it's like, okay, this might not be. So I would say that might be a sign that this isn't the church for you. Yeah. If it's gotten too big or too in a certain direction where you can't, there's no leadership that can have direct conversations with you about things, then that might not be the place for you. Yeah. All right. So don't leave just because you're offended, but be careful that you're not in some space to where you can't actually have correction. Yeah. Okay. Here's another reason I think why people shouldn't leave is I think it's dangerous, the whole I'm just not being fed. I think that's dangerous.
I think that's why I love our models of love, live, and really go out and that themselves. Like at the end of the day, relationship with God. So for you to become more like Jesus is that take this little bit that you've been fed, but you got to keep
digging deeper.
Yeah. Cause you can't survive off of that. Like that's like you eating one meal a week and you're saying, I'm not going to eat no more throughout the week.
Or that should last me.
Until the next Sunday. And if people were to think of that a little bit more of, you don't have your pastor 7 days a week. That's just not what you have. And you shouldn't expect that from them. Like, they're moving in their gifting and their calling. If you feel that it's not deep enough for you, or that the fact that you're not being fed enough, then okay, go ahead and find another church. But know that the fact that wherever you go, I don't know if you'll ever feel that enough, because all that's telling me is that you're not spending enough time on yourself throughout the week. Yeah. That's really what it means. And I would say that because an hour sermon is not going to feed you enough.
Or 39 minutes.
Yeah.
I did 37 on Sunday.
Okay. And so I think that at first, when I used to hear this phrase, I used to feel very like, man, we're just not, maybe it's just, we're not.
I thought every other pastor, because I never felt like that at the church. When we started going to church, I was like, oh, my pastor is amazing. Yeah. I always am leaving with like, oh, I never saw that. You know what I mean? Right, exactly. And then it would make you curious enough to, oh, I want to keep like reading that myself or looking into that even more or whatever. Like, I think that's what does it phenomenal job. I think the greatest sermons don't answer all your questions. They make you want to go deeper into the Bible for yourself. Exactly. That's how I feel. Or you're processing it, right? You're like, I'm like, I want to look into that myself. He said about offense. Like, I want to know really what that means, because I didn't get a chance to do that during the experience or service or whatever. Like, I want to be able to check that out and see what does the Bible say really about that, And I think that is what is supposed to prompt us on a Sunday. Yeah. So I definitely think that I agree. Like, don't leave because of the fact that you're not being fed enough. Please don't use that phrase. Feed yourself. Because you're not a baby. I think about like our church, we exist for unchurched, dechurched, overchurched. So at what, like, it's like, it's not just, I think the problem is, especially if you're used to a church that isn't evangelistic and everybody is, everybody's deep in the word and everybody's mature. Well, then you can go as deep as you want to go. You're just not going to go wide. And I think that phrase "deep" is by the person's perspective. Oh yeah, for sure. Because deep can mean what? Yeah. Like that I can talk Christianese to you. Yeah. Or that the fact that you think I should worship a certain way. Yeah. You think I should pray a certain way. Yeah. That shows you that I'm deep enough. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that in itself is. That's already a red flag. That's a red flag. People that say deep, seasons, or God told me. Those are, you're always. God told me. Yeah, it makes your ears glow. I'm not saying they're bad words. It's always like, okay, where is this going? Check yourself and see how much you use it. Okay, so that's a bad excuse. Well, I just wasn't being fed. Yeah. Because were you feeding yourself? Yeah. But on the flip side. And consistently. I would just say consistently. Yeah. Because people are not real with themselves about that. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many young adults we were always talking. They're like, I do pray. I do read my word. I'm not talking about once a week or once a month. Or you're on your way to way to work, like in the car. I'm saying you are genuinely, consistently praying and like scheduling out your time with Jesus. Yeah. And you do that every single day. Yeah. And you like. It's impossible not to grow. Yeah. Like. But then on the other hand, I do empathize and feel for people who are like, the pastor is not giving us a fresh rhema word from God. It's these recycled sermons. It's super predictable. It's very like I think sometimes the work of the minister is to equip saints for ministry, right? So if every single sermon just feels like a TED talk that like, there's no sort of spiritual depth to it. Yeah. Like I'm not being fed because I don't want to do the work, but also like I go on Sunday and it's literally just like every sermon is only for the person. Because here's the problem. Some pastors so focus on the loss that they forget about the found. Yeah. And so it's like every sermon is for the one who, and it's like, bro, there's 100 people in here. 98 of them were here the Sunday before. Yeah. The other 2 are here visiting with their family and they're going back to their state. Yeah. It's like so there is an onus and the responsibility of pastors to where if there's no anointing, if there's no, you can tell he has not, if he doesn't prioritize the word in terms of giving you something that's worth your time, that's the waste of your time to invest your time there.
Right.
So
if you can start seeing that, then
if you start seeing super predictable patterns, or like, you just know, like, oh, you can sense like this was
so
like, and I'm not saying like every sermon, like I'm not putting that pressure on myself. Like every sermon has to be like this mind blowing.
No, you don't. It's not. What's that called?
What's the pattern?
Like not a
home run.
Home run.
Yeah.
Not a home run.
But if you're like, you're not even getting on base, like he's just striking out. Like every sermon is just like.
And I think that it's just challenging pastors, if you're listening, like the fact that I think that you do have an onus and a responsibility as a communicator, as a pastor, to one, study your word, but two, to spend time with God, like just quality time with God. Yeah. But then three, it's like to grow in your communication skills. Like if you've been doing the same thing and you've never sharpened yourself that way in any type of form or fashion, like, then that's a problem. Because we all have to sharpen ourselves in some type of way, like as leaders, right? And it's like, so why would you think that you don't? Like that.
You want every other ministry. I want my kids, people to get better. I want readers. Like, I want the creative team to get better. And they're here's the funny thing. Okay, true story. Pastors get irritated when they're like, hey, why don't we have any sermon clips, or can we make this? Like, bro, you don't say nothing that people, this stuff is not what people want to hear online. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't be frustrated with like, why doesn't my creative team out here, pastor, like, why does my creative team ever get out clips and stuff? It's like, bro, because they're looking at it like, I would have to add so many effects and like, sound, I gotta use music fillers. Like, it's like,
just, hey,
that's reality.
If you don't got real friends, then you gotta, you need some real friends in your life.
And so there's that it's humbling, right? But it should be a humbling thing. And it should also be a challenge. Like, I want to be worth the people that spend their gas, time, whatever, to come all the way to our church. I never want them to feel like I should have stayed at home. I don't know. It wasn't worth it. You know?
And it's not that for the super Christians. I hope you might not even be listening to this podcast, but for if you so happen to come across it, of just the fact that we're not saying that the fact that sorry, I'm like thinking of two things at once and lost my train of thought. Say that last thing that you just said.
I want to make sure that when people come to our church, it's worth their time. They don't.
And the word of God is not a waste of time. That's not what we're saying. And we're saying that the fact that, yes, can they always get something out of the word of God? Yes, of course. But how you communicate it and the time that you take to study and actually, like, you expect people to show up, then you show up for people as well. Like, it goes both ways. So I think that that's mostly,
Can't demand loyalty if you don't deliver excellence. I think that, okay, let's get back to the people. So if you're getting, if you're always offended, that's on you. But if you're gonna look for signs of like, not look for, but be aware, like if there's a constant frustration and irritation and you can't communicate that with someone, that's a problem. If you're not being fed enough, that's on you. But if you're in a space where they're giving out refried beans, you know, and it's not a fresh thing, then okay, that's fair. That's fair. Because you have the option. Like, this is like, no one's forcing. Yeah, this is a choice. Okay. Worship style. I don't like the music. That's another one.
This is something that bugs you. I've stood in a place that I don't like, that I'm not crazy about the music all the time or whatever. Like, but that's just me.
No. I think you have a better, I think you have a pure heart for worship in that aspect.
Because I just feel like when I got saved, once again, like it was more of, I never lost the thought process to myself of, this is my worship to him. Yeah. So this is my opportunity to worship him. Yeah. So I've been in places, I've been in rooms with hard Like,
you're like, oh
like,
my gosh, this
so
is not
hard
this
to
is not a
listen.
pleasing sound to
It's
the Lord.
not-
It can't be.
It's not a pleasing sound, but I've allowed it to not distract me in that way. Now, can I continue to be in that way?
Would you choose to stay there? You're saying
it would have to. Other things would have to outweigh it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not the first thing on my list.
Yeah.
Type of deal. Like if you're trying to find a place or whatever, and you have things like this is what it has to have type of deal, then that's just not the first thing on my list. So I would say to that point of like, I don't think it's worth moving a church or just like leaving just because you just don't like the worship, because I feel like you should be worshiping God on your own anyways. So
listen to Bethel on your way there, or Kirk Franklin on your way there,
right?
And then
whatever you
have is what you have,
yeah.
And then on your way back, listen to Maverick
like,
City.
You know what? So and so's like not that great of a singer.
Okay.
But you know what's funny is I feel like most people can't even tell half the time. Like I think there's a good majority. No, you're talking. We're on the West Coast, like. Yeah. We know music.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit different. Yeah. I feel like I've only been in places that are maybe in the South or Midwest that I was like that music's okay.
I've been to some places.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. And in every state. Every state that I've been to for a church.
Okay, so what would that be for you?
But no, I still agree. I think the first thing to remember is worship is not for you, it's for God.
Yeah.
So I think having that mindset is essential, because it's very easy to become narcissistic and think that, well, it doesn't fit my preferences. Yeah. And it's like, but if it's for him, you know? So I don't think just because I don't like the worship, that's the thing. But I do believe that if in my position now of leading a church, I'm intentional of creating a worship environment that I believe helps resonate with the type of people who want to feel at home. Yeah. So when we're trying to get the unchurched, dechurched, and overchurched, a lot of them are coming from places where they never felt like it doesn't resonate. This doesn't resonate with me. And I've been trying to sacrifice how I am to fit into this. And we wanted to create a space where, hey, you don't have to sacrifice anymore. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the same way that we and our church loves our worship style, I'm sure there's people that come from other places that are like, oh, this is too something, for them. And so I would say, hey, then you have to decide, is the preaching, kids ministry, and community up to a level of where you can make a sacrifice of praise and choose to worship in spite of, it's too much rhythm for you, or, I didn't know that song. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you have to make a decision.
Yeah. There's some songs we've done that I'm like, nah, I didn't like that song, Donnie. Yeah. There's just some songs I was like, that wasn't a hitter.
Yeah. But in the moment, you're able to say, it doesn't matter. I'm going to worship anyway. Yeah. And I think that's essential.
But I also think it's just because we've been in such a variety.
Yeah. And I also think some of that is good though, because again, even occasional weeks where I'm like, I don't know if I was feeling it. Yeah. But as long as he was. Yeah. Now, is there certain things you're like, this just isn't our church. Like this just isn't how we express. Yeah. Like this just isn't us. And I think you can be honest. Then you can be honest.
So
and you can
make saying the worship thing could be a two, like either or.
Yeah, either or. I think it's if you're basing everything on I just don't like the worship, I think that's a heart check. Yeah. But on the opposite end, if it's like if you have to suppress, I'll give a good example. One time, I was leading a ministry at a church and I was like, hey, I really want to do this song for the youth and for the students. Yeah. And the worship director said, we're not gospel. That's too gospel. We don't do that here. And that rubbed me a wrong way, because I was like, but I have.
Do you not see me right now?
Yeah. I'm like
do you not?
I'm right here, But I'm also like, but since I've been here, I brought students who look like me. Yeah. And so my issue with that was, so what you're saying is you're more committed to a style than the actual sheep that are coming. You're more married to your style or your preference than meeting the needs and being flexible to what could actually reach more. And you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's where my issue is so when so whether any of that,
Because I would say, because you're talking from a staff point of view.
Where like I actually had influence and opportunity to change. I wasn't like attending something. I was like, I'm leading something, but I needed support of other people to make it happen.
So I would say leaders, if you're listening to the fact that the ones that can make that change and be aware of that in your own like homes, churches and ministries is like, who is the audience? Yeah. Because of the fact that like that has to be a reflection of them. Yeah. In that way of who that, of the expressions that you're choosing to have in worship and the songs and everything. Like, but to say that you just have this one cookie cutter way, but yet you're getting other people there that are, or maybe you're not getting other people. And that's why. Yeah. Maybe you don't get other people because they don't feel, they're like, oh, I have to, I'm tired. If I go to that church, I have to compromise how I worship and how I'm wired and how I'm designed to fit. I have to, you know what I mean? If and that's why a lot of churches aren't multicultural. And that's why they don't feel at home. But we're coming from the space of minorities. Yeah. Minorities of just not, that's who we are. I don't think minorities should have to feel like you should go to church and not have to be reminded that I'm a minority. In 2023, like, how are we still feeling this? Like, but hey, it is because of mindsets like that. Like, that's not us. And well, that's why they go to Legacy. Okay. So don't leave for offense. Don't leave because you're not being fed. Right. Don't leave just because I didn't like the worship. Like, those are things we would say those aren't the good things to lead. And I think take ownership in those areas. We really got to wrap this up. Yeah. First and foremost, it has to be, where is God leading you? Is this 100%. A God thing? Am I being led by, I really feel a discontentment in this season, in this space, and I feel like my grace is lifted? Because here's a couple things. Every time I go to the place, I'm looking on things I would change, I want to change. That may be you're not called to change that church. Yeah. No, not to change the vision. Not to change the vision. So even like that place, I realized like, okay, I'm not mad at that. That's how you guys are wired. That's fine. Like, I'm not called to change that church. Yep. That's your worship, whatever. I do believe that oftentimes your frustrations will lead you into the purpose where God wants you. Like, there's that, like, a lot of things we hear from people is like, I never felt at home because of XYZ. And this place still is at home for me. Yeah. And I think the main thing is, where is that feeling of I'm at home? Because if I'm at home, you come to my house, you're going to get arguing. Yeah. You're going to get friction. Yeah. But it's home and it's family. And we're not going to just like, what am I going to do? Leave my wife and kids because like that would, right? Yeah. And so I think that realizing that whatever church I go to, it's never going to be perfect. Yeah. I'm looking for at least 80%. Does it give me 80% of what I want? 70. 75. 75 to 80. 3 out of 4. Yeah. Does it give me 3 out of 4 of the things? And then that fourth thing is a non-essential. You know what I mean? Now, let's talk about some things that are absolutely like, you should not be there. If it's heretical, if they're not actually preaching the Bible, if they're endorsing sin, it's time to go. If they're compromising the word of God to meet cultural or political views, leave. Yes. In a hurry. Don't even need to pray about it. Just leave. Yeah. If they're covering abuse, sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, emotional abuse. If abuse is covered and not like, hey, well, this was no. Yeah. Leave. Yeah. They're leave. That's not it. That's all secretive. Yeah. Like, you want to get out of there. Yeah. If your kids are miserable, I would say as a parent, I probably wouldn't stay there. Yeah. If my kid, now, I'm not talking about the fact of my kids never want to go to church. No. Most kids, I didn't want to go to church. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a place where parents guide your kids to church. Yeah. Like, it's my responsibility to lead my kids. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about in terms of like if you ask them on hey, what did you learn today? Yeah. And they're like, oh, we just play video games. Yeah. Again. Or is there, if I have a teenager, is the church set up to provide resources, even if my kid doesn't like it, take advantage of it, is at least set up for my child's spiritual growth? Yeah. Do they have systems and leaders in place, or a vision, even if it's not like we just started a church? Yeah. So we don't have everything, of where we've been, but we have a vision. We have systems in place to keep growing that way. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? If I'm a parent, I got to be in a space where I know my kids are going to be able to be raised up because I need, or what I
and I don't think this is wrong. If you found a church you love, but your kids want to be at another church, let your kids go where they want to be.
Yeah.
Let your kids go where they will grow.
Yeah.
It does not need to be our whole family goes to church together.
Yeah.
If your kids want to be at another, if my kids want to be at church, that's a win.
Youth group is like this place. We're talking about youth group now, not kids, but like teenagers, because we were youth pastors. Yeah. So we know like some youth groups, they meet on a weekday and it doesn't require you, like they could go with you on Sunday, but they want to go to this youth group on Wednesday night or whatever, Tuesday night, whatever the case might be. So if they actually are asking to go, then let them be a part of that.
But I would say if youth is on a Sunday,
if Sunday night or something, right?
No, I'm saying like right now, our oldest daughter
is like, no.
Think about it. We have families at our church where their teenagers go to other churches. And like, I think about Genevieve. If Genevieve was 12, 13, 14 years old and was like, I really, really love going to the church around the corner.
100%.
And it's the same time as Legacy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, no, me and your mother started this church. You're going to be a part of this church. I want her to love Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't want her to resent the church and then end up resenting Jesus because I was so legalistic or I was so like, you have to be doing it with me.
That's good.
That I end up pushing her away from God.
Yeah.
So as long as you want to be in the house of God, as long as I can trust the theology and stuff, go ahead.
But that's the mindset of who God is with us though.
Yeah.
Of we're his daughters, we're his sons. And I think for those who've been OverChurched, like just knowing that maybe leaders, pastors have handled you wrong in that way of just like, if you feel called to go somewhere, leaders, let them go.
Yeah. Hold them with the open hand. They don't belong to you.
Yeah. They don't belong to you. Whether they you are not, this church ain't the only way. Yeah. Like that is not true. That is not true for anybody.
You're not the only door to Jesus.
No. Yeah. So just keeping that mindset of knowing that and just truly like somebody who's listening that you're like, I don't want to be that leader. I don't want to be that pastor that somebody gets OverChurched by me or whatever. And let people go. Yeah. And let them go well. Yes. Because they can return. And if you allow them to go peacefully in that way, because they were never yours, they're always his. And your church ain't the only way.
And I would say, here's the next one. If you have been trying to leave and the church keeps talking you into stay, that's the time to leave.
Red flag.
That's a red flag.
Red flag.
That's the time to go. Because what you're doing is, because here's the thing.
If you got to be convinced.
If you have to be convinced to stay, you need to leave.
That's crazy.
Because your heart's not in it.
Yeah.
You're doing it you're staying there out of guilt, manipulation, or people pleasing. Yeah. And that's not the heart of God. Right. The Bible says his love and kindness leads us to repentance. You know what I mean?
I have this story and we're going to end with this. Look at, he thought twice. Look at like the pastor and he was like, I'm not wrapping up.
Somebody bring out the keys, made me sound spiritual.
Exactly. Great story. You just got to preach about forgiveness and
how to handle people who mishandled you.
Yeah. But overall forgiveness, right? So look at, he's trying to give me all the little lines, whatever. So then I had this one woman come up to me, and I mean, like, it was our anniversary. It was our 12-year anniversary as well.
As a marriage, not as a church.
Yes. Our marriage happened to be on Sunday. So our church celebrated us unexpectedly. So I went in there and they prayed over us, and it was so sweet. And this woman pulled me to the side who I knew, and she grabbed me and pulled me to the side, and she was like, I want you to know how much this has meant to us, like how much legacy, and I can't thank you guys enough. And I was like, yeah. Like, and she was like, no. I know you hear this all the time, but I'm looking at you and I'm telling you, like, I need you to know how much this has meant to me and my family, like, to be here. Because let me tell you, I was so proud of this family. So she looks at me and says, I was mad at you. And it's one of those moments like, mad at me? I didn't even know I offended you. Yeah. What are you mad at me about? Like, like it was one of those moments. Yeah. And I was just like, but she was like, because you guys asked us to step down from serving and to focus on our marriage, it she started then crying and getting emotional and choked up. And she was like, I can't even tell you how much this time has meant for us and how much it's been a blessing to me and my family. And she was just like, and I want you guys to know that was because of your leadership. And I've never had anybody have us do that, to just be able to reset and put our marriage first, put my child first, and then to allow God to restore that time. And she was like, I was so angry and I was so upset, but I'm so glad that we had this time. And now I just feel so bad. And I just told her, like, I was so proud of her because she could have left.
Yeah.
I didn't even know she was mad. Like, I knew she was a little upset because I knew the situation of what we had asked, and we had asked her to step down to take time for her and her marriage. And because they were just going through a really rough time. And
it wasn't like sin.
No,
it wasn't. It wasn't like, hey, it was more like, hey, we're seeing some things and we want you to focus. Yeah. We don't want you to idolize church or put more into church than you do into your family.
You could tell. I know that there's people like that you guys are great people to serve, like you serve, but never to the extent that it's to the health of your marriage, your relationship, your kids. Like, we would never ask that of you because I would never want you guys to ask that of us. So like, so I think that was such, it made me emotional. And I was like, thank you, God. Thank you, God, that we came to this place that that there is some people that will hear your voice and will hear you through us and pierce their hearts to allowing them to know, like, don't leave this place. As much as it might feel uncomfortable, as much as you were upset and angry, like, still hang on to that. Like, you were still getting fed there. You're still, it all benefited them. Yeah. It didn't benefit us in any way.
Even when it was frictiony.
Yeah.
Even when it was hard.
So it was just so encouraging. So I do feel, and we do have hope that there's so many people that you're overchurched, and you just, the fact that you just never took the time to prioritize the health of your own relationship with God, the health of your marriage or your kids. Yeah. And you need to reevaluate that.
Of like, I'm letting the church down, or the church has convinced me, no, you can figure it out.
Right.
Like, you need to.
If you don't set those priorities or boundaries, they're not. Yeah. So, and we had to, but we know our demographic of people that we are doing this with and for.
Yep. So church, do church, over church.
Anyways, that
was good.
Hope that was encouraging. Love y'all, and hope you guys tune in next week.
Bye. Love, live, and lead like Jesus.